Area 51 is the most famous secret military installation on Earth. For 70 years, its silence has been filled by a roar of public speculation. Crashed saucers, extraterrestrial corpses, and a global cover-up. While these stories dominate the headlines, the declassified records point to a different objective, a facility built to hide advanced machines, which inadvertently became a magnet for mystery. In April 1955, the Cold War created a desperate need for a new kind of intelligence. The CIA required a secure location to test an aircraft capable of flying over the Soviet Union undetected. This project demanded a site that was geographically isolated and shielded from any form of public or foreign surveillance. CIA officer Richard Bissell and Lockheed's lead engineer Kelly Johnson surveyed the Mojave Desert from a small plane to find that sanctuary. They spotted a dry salt flat known as Groom Lake, a remote location sitting adjacent to the Nevada test site's existing security perimeter. The geography of Groom Lake created a natural isolation chamber. Surrounded by the Emigrant Valley and Groom Mountains, the dry lake bed provided an ideal runway. It was a blank slate, hidden behind miles of restricted desert and guarded by the same security cordon used for nuclear weapons testing. This extreme isolation was perfect for engineering new aircraft in total darkness. However, it also created a vacuum of information. When the government refused to explain what was happening, it left a gap the public was certain to fill with their own explanations. The arrival of the U-2 spy plane in 1955 accidentally birthed the modern UFO phenomenon. The aircraft featured massive, glider-like wings and a silver skin that allowed it to reach altitudes previously thought impossible for human flight. This chart compares standard mid-century aviation to the new secret project. While commercial airliners in the 1950s cruised at 30,000 feet, the U-2 operated between 60,000 and 70,000 feet, an altitude that defied the public's understanding of physics at the time. Because of this height, the U-2's wings would catch the setting sun long after the ground had fallen into darkness. Commercial pilots looking up at the twilight sky would see bright, glowing objects moving at extreme speeds and reported them as unidentified craft. CIA records later confirmed that these high-altitude test flights accounted for more than half of all UFO reports in the U.S. during the late 1950s. The agency was fully aware of the misidentifications, but chose not to correct them. The government realized that allowing the public to believe in alien visitors was an effective way to shield classified Cold War technology. At this early stage, the UFO myth was a passive shield, a convenient misunderstanding that the CIA simply allowed to persist. By the 1980s, the government's approach to the UFO phenomenon shifted. What began as a passive byproduct of secrecy was transformed into an active tool for disinformation, used to manipulate civilians who got too close to black projects. This transition is best illustrated by the case of Paul Bennewitz. An amateur radio enthusiast living near Kirtland Air Force Base, Bennewitz began intercepting unusual electronic signals that he believed were alien in origin. He didn't realize he was actually monitoring highly classified military transmissions. To protect the real military signals, counterintelligence officer Richard Doty fed Bennewitz forged documents and diagrams concerning underground alien bases. The goal was to keep Bennewitz's attention fixed on extraterrestrial fantasies, so he wouldn't investigate the actual electronic warfare experiments happening at the base. The campaign successfully protected the military secrets, but it led to Bennewitz's severe mental breakdown. It permanently poisoned UFO research with government-manufactured lies, establishing a precedent for the state to use the alien narrative as a weapon. This history reveals a documented pattern. The U.S. government is willing to manufacture alien lore and disrupt the lives of its citizens to ensure its technical capabilities remain hidden. The daily operation of Area 51 is governed by a strict need-to-know system. a security mechanism that segments the workforce into isolated groups. As shown in this diagram, these information silos prevent workers from communicating across departments. A scientist might spend years studying a single propulsion component without ever being told what the entire aircraft looks like or where it originated. When employees are kept in the dark, they are forced to speculate on the technology they handle. In 1989, Bob Lazar claimed he worked at a site called S4 to reverse engineer alien craft powered by a stable version of element 115, an isotope not yet on the periodic table. While Lazar's claims remain unverified, the actual hardware being tested at the base in the 1980s was equally strange. This was the era of the F-117 Nighthawk, a stealth fighter with a faceted, angular design, appearing completely non-human to anyone outside the program. This cycle of fragmented internal knowledge continues to drive the narrative. When modern whistleblowers like David Grush testify to Congress about crash retrievals, they report second-hand information, claims originating from within the same compartmentalized intelligence systems. Whether sincere misinterpretation or deliberate fabrication, these accounts are the inevitable result of an institution preventing its people from seeing the full picture. Beyond the desert folklore lies a history of physical consequences. In the 1990s, the absolute secrecy used to protect the base's technology began to exact a toll on the workers inside the perimeter. In 1994, former employees and their widows filed the landmark lawsuit Casa v. Browner against the Air Force and the EPA. The workers alleged they were dying from rare cancers and respiratory diseases caused by the open-pit burning of toxic chemicals. They claimed the base regularly burned classified stealth coating materials and jet fuel in massive trenches, exposing the workforce to a hazardous mix of dioxins and carcinogens. The government responded by invoking the state secrets privilege. They argued that identifying the specific chemicals used at the base would reveal sensitive information to foreign intelligence, effectively blocking the workers from obtaining the evidence needed for their medical claims. The obsession with maintaining the shadowy mythology of the base created a legal fortress. In the name of national security, the government ensured that its workers were denied the basic protections and oversight granted to every other American citizen. To protect the base's operations, President Bill Clinton took unprecedented action to seal its records and dismiss the workers' litigation. He signed an executive order granting the facility a presidential determination. This legal mechanism, which has been renewed annually by every president since, explicitly exempts the operating location at Groom Lake from all environmental transparency and disclosure laws. Today, Area 51 remains a black box. It is protected by buried sensors, unmarked patrols, and deadly force authorization. To the public, it remains entirely opaque, its current projects shielded by the same layer of absolute secrecy established 7 decades ago. Area 51 represents the extreme boundaries of democratic oversight. The history of the site suggests that the most effective way to hide the reality of national security is to keep the public focused on the impossible.